On today's installation video, we'll be showing how to install a race chip on the new Mercedes-Benz 2-liter available across many of their models. Before installing the race chip, please wait until your engine is cool enough to work on. Put your parking brake or emergency brake on. If your vehicle is equipped with an alarm system, please disable it. Pop the hood, roll up the windows, close the doors, and press the lock button on your key fob and move that key fob 30 feet away. You're gonna wait about 10 minutes after for all the electricity to clear from underneath the hood. First step here is to remove the plastic engine cover. There'll be 4 rubber grommets, 1 on each corner, so we're just gonna gently pick up and to remove the plastic engine cover. For this installation, our A is going to our turbo boost pressure sensor right here on the driver's side. Our B is going to our manifold pressure sensor, which is going to be the identical same sensor on the back side of the manifold on the driver's side, right down here. You actually can reach down in there and undo the B connection, but for the installation video purposes, we will be removing the air filter so you guys can see that B sensor. Then our C is going to go to our camshaft position sensor right here. Now our A connection is going to our boost pressure sensor, which again is right here in the front of the driver's side of the engine. To unplug the OEM sensor plug, we're going to pull back on that white locking tab and press down gently. Then we're going to take the female end of the RaceChip wiring harness and plug it directly into that OEM sensor plug, lock it in place, before we take our male end of the wiring harness and plug that directly into the OEM sensor and lock it in place with the gray locking tab. Once again, our B connection is just on the back side of the motor. Just like the A connection, we're going to pull back and push down on that white locking tab. Please note the sensor will be identical to the boost pressure sensor on the opposite side of the motor. So if you need any help referencing what the sensor looks like, you can refer to the A connection on the boost pressure sensor. Now with that OEM sensor unplugged, we can go ahead and take the male end of the RaceChip wiring harness and plug that into the manifold pressure sensor, before we take the female end of the RaceChip wiring harness and plug it into the male end of the OEM sensor plug. Now we'll move on to our C connection. Just like the A and B, we're going to pull back on that white locking tab and press down. If it's difficult, you can use a pick or also a small flathead screwdriver. Then we'll take the female end of the RaceChip wiring harness, plugging it in and locking it in place with that white locking tab. Before we do the same thing with the male connection, plugging it into that OEM sensor and locking it in place with the gray locking tab. Now with all of our connections securely made and locked in place, we'll go ahead and mount and install the race chip. We'll install the 4 included mounting tabs. Now the really nice thing about these is it actually allows you to mount either vertically or horizontally, and if you need to remove the race chip for any reason, you can push down these locking tabs to leave the wiring harness in place but remove the race chip. Now we can go ahead and move on to the wiring harness and installing the race chip. So the first thing to do is to remove the deactivation plug. We'll want to hang on to this, put it in your glove box or your center console. If you need to revert the car back to stock for any reason, you can simply install the deactivation plug. Now with the race chip installed, if you have the GTS, it's very important the first time we install it, we have no LED light up on the screen, or if you have the RS or S, you get no green LED to illuminate. We don't want any power going to the unit the first time we install it. Next up on the installation is to route and securely mount the wiring harness away from any hot or moving parts using the supplied zip ties. Now using the longer supplied zip ties, we're going to mount vertically on the mounting tabs and mount the race chip behind the headlight as it's away from any heat or moving parts. Then one of the last steps here is to cut the excess ends off the zip ties to give everything a nice OEM look, before we go ahead and reinstall the plastic engine cover. Start in the default setting of the race chip for the first time you test drive the car. If everything works great, you can then move the race chip to the next level up. Be aware that the car needs some time to adapt before releasing the full performance upgrade. Now, get out, drive, and enjoy your race chip.